Traders, how are you? With Marcello. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. We have a new war that just broke out in the Middle East. We have Warren Buffett selling billions, tens of billions of dollars in stocks. And we even have the second highest sell-off of foreigner owning stocks on record. Let's go ahead and get started. So overall, we have good economic news. There's good news in regards to what's happening to the economy, and that's giving a lot of confidence to people that the central bank is going to start lowering rates this coming year. Now, if you don't know how all this complicated stuff works, essentially we live in a over-financialized economy because everybody basically needs debt to survive, even the federal government. So the higher the interest rates are, the more expensive things are, and the less you can afford them, including the federal government. So with interest rates being so high, it basically slams the brakes on everything, buying houses, buying cars, paying your credit card, everything. But when they lower the interest rates, that gets everything moving again. So due to the fact that inflation, and there was good inflation numbers this week as well, that gives a lot of hope that the central bank of the United States is going to start to lower rates, starts to move the economy, and then you and I are going to live happily ever after. Merry Christmas, by the way. Happy holidays. You guys are probably watching the video literally during the actual Christmas day, so hopefully you had an amazing year. Remember, learn how to do something, because Conspiracy Marcello says some bad things are going to happen soon. So, there we go. So markets in the U.S., mostly positive. Canada was positive as well. One of the things that I found interesting this week is California, the Communist Republic of California, approved turning sewage directly into drinking water. They just keep winning in California. That is disgusting. And a huge deficit also of almost $70 billion. California is in a lot of trouble now that a lot more people are starting to leave. About 40% of their tax revenue comes from just 1% of the population. You can see Elon Musk left, right? Joe Rogan, for example, left. Jeff Bezos, even though he's from Washington, he came down to Florida as well. So it looks like a lot of people are looking for greener pastures. I'm just going to recommend something. I always try to be impartial and not get political when I do these videos. But if you're going to move away from California and Chicago and New York and Seattle and Washington, just don't vote the same way you voted before, because there's a reason why you left those states. Don't ruin our states as well. I just got to throw that out there. Overseas market news, stocks are mostly lower after 5 weeks of gains. European markets are mostly mixed. The biggest loser was Istanbul. Latin America was mixed as well. The biggest market in Latin America, which is the Bovespa, went up 1.96%. Africa and the Middle East, mostly mixed as well. Nigeria was the biggest winner there. If you didn't know, Nigeria is the biggest economy in all of Africa. And then Asia and the Middle East, mostly mixed as well, with the Hang Seng in Hong Kong having the biggest loser of all. Bitcoin and crypto, if you're looking for a second citizenship, you are in luck, because now El Salvador has passed a law saying they're going to grant citizenship to people to foreign Bitcoin investors. I think it has to do, not all the taxes come out, but basically if you donate a certain amount of Bitcoin or do something with Bitcoin, you can be eligible to apply for the El Salvadorian citizenship. Bitcoin for the week is up 3.41% to just a touch over 43,600. And in commodities, oil this week rose to its highest level in 2 years. We now have another war that's breaking out in the Middle East, and it's quote unquote in retaliation to what Israel is doing with the invasion in Gaza. The Houthi rebels are basically firing drones and missiles to all these tankers that have to go through the Suez Canal. If you guys don't know where the Suez Canal, just think of it as the Panama Canal in the Middle East. It's basically on the border of Egypt. And if you want to ship anything from Asia to Europe, basically you save a ton of money and also a ton of time going up through the Suez Canal, Mediterranean Sea, and then getting to where you need to go in Europe. This is actually very bad, because now the cost of a container is 3 times more to ship it from Asia to Europe due to the fact that it's too dangerous to travel through this area. Another thing as well is that supposedly there were some drone strikes. I saw a news article that just came out that there were some drones that were sent from India. So now it looks like it's starting to expand as well. This war or this situation that's happening with the shipping lanes. And one of the biggest problems is that 30% of the ocean freight containers pass through the Suez Canal, 12% of global oil, 8% of liquefied natural gas, and this is going to reduce capacity by 20%. So it doesn't affect us as much in the United States, but more Europe. But remember that Europe on its own, the euro, that whole area is literally the third largest economy in the world. And that includes, for example, Germany, which is the fourth largest economy in the entire world on its own. Oil posted its biggest weekly gains in October due to the situation. Crude went up in the U.S. 2.98% to 73.56, while Brent went up 3.29% to 79.07. And bills filed in Oklahoma and Missouri are looking to eliminate capital gains taxes on gold and silver. Because if you remember, back in the day, gold and silver was actually money. It wasn't, precious metals, whatever we call it now. They actually used that for money. So they're actually looking to take the taxes off of that. Gold went up 1.62% to 2,000 and just a touch under $2,052. Silver had a good movement as well. It went up 0.95% to 24.20. Financial and banking news. Warren Buffett has sold $28.7 billion worth of stocks, ringing alarms over the economy. In addition to that, in October, it was the second highest selling on record for foreigners owning stocks, meaning that all of the foreigners sold the second most amount of stocks in history, which means that, I always tell you guys, don't pay attention to what they say, pay attention to what they do. And if Warren Buffett is selling that amount of stocks and now foreigners are as well, that means that we might have a problem in the United States. Russia and China are ditching the U.S. currency for good in their wasn't the right word, but their trade between the two countries. Nigeria, the currency, which is called the Naira, has reached a record low against the U.S. dollar. Remember, Nigeria being the largest economy in all of Africa, And the UK inflation plunged in November to its lowest rate in 2 years. Housing prices in British houses as well went down by 1.2% in the last 12 months. It's the biggest annual fall since October 2011. And Milei, which is the first libertarian president in the entire world in history, since he was voted in as the Argentine president that have been voting for socialists for the last 70 years, made a lot of changes. Recently, he basically reduced the government by 50% by getting rid of a bunch of ministries that weren't necessary, like the Ministry of Equality, for example, so everybody can be equal as poor. He also did raise some taxes, which was interesting, on the grain exports to be able to fund or reduce the taxes and some other things as well. So we'll see how well he does, because Argentina, if you didn't know, which he was the richest country in the world in 1900, the year 1900, they started voting for socialist policies. And for the last 70 years, they now have almost a 50% poverty rate. Commerce Department on Friday reported that the U.S. prices fell for the first time in 3.5 years. There's been the annual increase in inflation also is now under 3%, which is boosting the interest and also the confirmation that the central bank in the United States is going to start lowering rates. And in political news, in the Communist Republic of New York, there's a New York county that announces travel bans for catastrophes. So this could include a hurricane, it could include fires, it could include a snowpocalypse, but they're introducing movement passes in addition to essential workers. And remember, if you're in New York, the state of New York passed a law saying that they can detain you for no reason if there's another pandemic. So they can literally grab you, no due process, throw you in some kind of camp, and you don't get to see a judge, you don't get to see anybody, you literally just get to stay there forever. That's what they want for you. So if I were you, I would move away from New York as fast as possible. Chilean voters rejected a second proposal from the new constitution. They're trying to change the constitution that was in place from the dictatorship of Pinochet years ago. 56% rejected it. What's happening basically is they voted for a communist president, so he wants to put in the kind of constitution that a lot of the communist regimes like. Another big piece of news is regards to Trump. The Colorado Supreme Court made history on Tuesday and made an unprecedented decision to not allow Trump to be on the ballot. They're saying that he is constitutionally ineligible due to the conduct on January 6th, and it bans basically the 14th Amendment on insurrectionists. Now, a lot of experts are actually saying that this isn't going to stand in the Supreme Court due to the fact that he was never found guilty in a court of law. So no matter what side you're on, right? I always try to do these reviews and these videos apolitical, so it doesn't matter if on your right or on the left, or you love Trump or hate Trump. But at the end of the day, he didn't get a defense, and everybody has a right to a defense. So a lot of analysts are saying that the Supreme Court is actually going to take that down. There's actually a lot of other states now that are looking to remove Joe Biden from the ballot, some swing states also, due to the situation on the border. Economic news, single-family housing starts jumped 18%. Single-family home building also, there's an increase in the amount of permits. This is the highest level since April 2022. And the housing starts exploded 42.2% year-over-year basis in November. Record amount of people in Toronto, Canada that are eating food from food banks at the government. It's now up to 2 million people. Remember that the population of Canada is only about 35 million or so. It might be a little bit higher now, but last time I looked, it was that amount. 62% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And then LA high-rise in downtown sold for 45% less than what it was sold for in 2014, kind of reflecting the crisis that's on the horizon in regards to the banks. Because if you don't know how this works, residential properties and even multiplexes, for example, 4 units in a house or 3 units in a house, those always get the 30-year mortgages. But commercial properties actually have to be refinanced, if I'm not mistaken, every 7 years. If you guys are any business people, this might have changed a little bit because now they did pass a law saying that you can put down 5% on a multiplex. But the problem is that a lot of these banks are going to be taking a haircut. And when that starts compounding over time, that might cause another banking crisis. October was the second biggest month of foreign selling in the U.S. stocks ever. They also sold treasuries and started to stock up on gold reserves, as I mentioned to you guys about Warren Buffett as well. The Atlanta Fed's GDP Now tracker is predicting that the last quarter is going to have a 2.7% annualized growth rate. The third quarter was the fastest growth rate that we've had since after the recovery of the pandemic. And the number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits rose unexpectedly last week, but it's still in record low levels, meaning that the economy is still supposedly doing very well. Jobless claims were up by 2,000 as well, to about 205,000 ending last week. And in corporate news, Hasbro, the company that sells toys all over the world, is laying off 20% of their workforce due to the fact that people aren't buying toys anymore. So if anything shows you what's really going on with the economy, it would be this, because I think that most parents try to buy anything they want for their kids. And during the holiday season, you would imagine that they're going to increase the number of purchases. So this actually shows you what the consumer is doing in the United States, being that the consumer is almost 70% of the economy in the U.S. FedEx as well. FedEx went down over 12% after they cut their revenue outlook. So FedEx being one of the large shipping companies, that means that if people aren't shipping things, that means the economy isn't doing as well anymore. And Nike fell almost 12% as well, as they had their worst session in 26 years on Friday after they cut their outlook on revenue and income, and they look to cut $2 billion in costs over the next 3 years. Affirm, this is the company that offers buy now, pay later services. They exploded 15% after they announced that they were going to be offering their services in the automated kiosks at over 4,500 stores at Walmart around the country. This is where you basically are able to take the products now, but then you pay for it over time. This, to me, those 3 things right there kind of catalog what's really going on with the economy, even though the Fed is saying that it's doing really well. Toshiba, the once huge Japanese conglomerate, is going to be taken private. They're going to be removed from the Tokyo Stock Exchange after 74 years. They're going to be taking profit after the last 10 years. There's been a bunch of bickering and fighting with a lot of investors, including international investors and Warner Bros. In addition to Paramount, their two CEOs got together for a coffee to talk about how the two companies can combine. And there was no further news in regards to that. Elon Musk said that they're going to offer a mod package for the Cybertrucks to make it amphibious, to be able to cross water. A lot of water, supposedly. And Minnesota cities received millions of dollars in federal grants to buy electric buses for public transit. And now, due to the cold weather, they're not even able to turn on or having a lot of trouble charging due to sub-zero temperatures. According to Texas Public Policy Foundation, in 10 years following a purchase of an electric vehicle, almost $12,000 of cost of those EVs are transferred to taxpayers and utility ratepayers, effectively socializing the price of buying a car. So even though I buy the electric vehicle, it's my car, I get all the benefits, but I share the cost with everybody else. And X, or previously known as Twitter, had a blackout on Thursday. They supposedly got everything back on track. International events, huge volcano eruption in Iceland. If you guys didn't know, Iceland is actually, there's an Atlantic rift where the African and European tectonic plates hit the American plates. And Iceland always has a bunch of issues with, geothermal activity and volcanic activity. This was actually pretty impressive because it was a line of 3 miles just opened up in the middle of a town and just lava started gushing through. Take a look at the videos. It's really, really scary. An Iranian media reports said that an Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander said that if the U.S. and its allies don't stop its crimes against Gaza and Hamas, that they're going to close the Mediterranean Sea as well. So the Suez Canal is what feeds into the Mediterranean Sea, and then everybody goes to Europe and they go around Spain if they need to go to Germany or things like that. But interesting that he said that they're going to close the Mediterranean Sea. Interesting facts, an Italian family handed over a long-lost $109 million Sandro Botticelli painting. It was sitting in their house, and they now are starting to recover it and also prove that it's actually made from Mr. Botticelli. And an artifact stolen from Pompeii, Italy, has been received from a family in Belgium after it was discovered that it was missing and they actually had it. Supposedly the son said that he bought it from some guy at the beach, and that's how things just turn up, right? That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you think of the audio. Got a new mic. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and let's have an amazing new year.